So today I traded 6 times. I traded on STAF, ISIG, SPI, and WEI, all former runner and recent runner. SPI was the one that went to for like $46 and then dropped $46 from like $1 and crashed big. WEI was recent runner that went to like $10 and then got T1 halt and crash to like the $3 area. And ISIG was also a recent runner, but it was like a gap and crap. And then let's see, well, what was the last one? STAF was another recent runner. So all recent runners. Overall, today was a green day. But what I did well today was patience for my entry on some of the trade that I did. What I still had to work on was patience for my exit. Trading according to my plan, because today I basically just took my profits. While my trade did eventually hit my goal, the average was like a 1-to-1, 1-to-2 risk reward. So that was the average uh, sell, because I basically lock in my profits as they move to my goal. It was less stressful that way. But yeah, so here's my screen. STAF. This was my first trade. It was a pre-market trade. It wasn't the best, because I wasn't trading the setup that I was aiming to trade, which is ABCD setup, the higher lows and risking the lower low, aiming for the breakout of the previous of the lower high. This one I traded with 30 shares. I was risking like 3 cents on it. Risking basically my risk was 58. My goal was to make like 10 cents on it if it could actually move back up, right? So I made for like above 5% gains. What happened was it moved up to like 67, and then it double top, and I sold 2/3 of my positions. Well, because it broke the trend, it broke the uptrend, moved lower, and then I was holding 10 shares and decided to cut my losses 162. Why? Because it was getting closer to the open, and I did not want to get involved in the volatile emotional move up and down open. And what happened? It dipped instead of moving up, and it has been dipping all day, as you can see. The second trade, ISIG. I was watching this trade. I was watching this ticker on around here. So my first watch of it was pre-markets around like the 130 to 150. I didn't trade it because I didn't know how to trade it. The high was way too high from the low. Not the low, but yeah, like it was way too high from the low, and it was pre-markets, and I did not like how it was trading sideways, choppy sideways, and I didn't like that. I basically just watched its move and missed this whole move here. Could make like a 1-to-3 risk reward. So yeah, I missed it. It's okay. And then because I missed it, I did try to get an entry here at 135 around here. like 149. Yeah, it moved up without me, and I just let it be. When I entered, my plan here was 135. My risk was 130. Go 145 and higher. So basically like 150. 150 risk to reward. And because I missed my entry here, I basically just let it go. Because at this point, it was already like 138. 138, 139. Yeah. And I just watched the whole thing move without me. And then from here, I went to STF because it was also running. And seeing that it was basing at the bottom, I enter on STF. Wasn't too good of a trade. And then my entry here was good. It was on a higher low. When I entered at 152, my risk, I wasn't aiming to risk down here at like a 142. I was risking like 147, risking 5 cents on the stock. It was a volatile move. On the break of the downtrend, it was an ABCD, A, B, C, and D up here. My goal when I entered here was the 170. That was my goal. Once for it to break 170, because as you can see here, the previous high of day was like 169. My goal was for it to break 170. What happened? It it did some quick move, quick spike, and so I decided to take my profits, because with quick spike mean a quick drop. And yeah, I basically just took my profits along the way as it was moving up. And each time I was selling half and half and half and half. Eventually, my last sale was 158. The the thing about this one was, if I had been more patient, I could have sell off like into the 170s, reaching my goal, and made more than uh my risk, a 1 to 3 risk reward, which would have been good. I basically made like a 1 to 2 risk reward here on this trade because I was taking profits along the way. My average sell was like in the 65. So I made like 6% this uh on this trade right here. There is nothing wrong with taking my profits. There is nothing wrong with taking my profits as long as selling to strength, right? Just need like a bit more convictions. And what happened? I eventually re-entered 160 because it made up like a higher low here. My risk was this line, 155, and it hit my risk and I got out. It did came back to 160, which would have been like a break even. But as you can see, it was making lower highs, lower highs, lower highs, and a descending triangle, which was bearish, meaning that it's gonna crack. And what happened? It did crack. When it cracked 155, it flushes, and I got out. So it's a good thing I got out there, taking my risk. And then I decided to trade again on this ticker. Why? Because it was making a lower high. It was coming back down. So it's basically like an ABCD, thinking that maybe it could move back up to like to test VWAP. That was my goal when I entered 137. My risk was 133. So risking 3 to 4 cents on there. That was my risk area. The thing about this trade was that After I entered, a news came out that the stock was moving without any news at all. So that could be interpreted as bad news, right? And could be interpreted as not very strong. And I didn't want to get into a stock that have like a potential T1 halt. So I basically break even here. Enter at 137, out at 137. I break even on this trade. It did eventually hit to 142, but as you can see, it went lower. And either way, I was gonna take my losses, cut my losses, or cut my losses quickly if it dropped below, making like the downtrend. As you can see here, it made a very nice downtrend. And so I cut my losses here, break even on this trade. Another trade was SPI. The thing about SPI was it was a trade for an ABCD setup again. I should have cut my losses like quickly here at 90, enter at 905 on the break of this tiny downtrend, right? The thing about this trade was my risk was 880. So because my size was small, I was willing to risk a bit bigger than usual. So I was risking 80 cents. If I actually cut my losses like $9.95, the 8.95 to $9 area, I could have re-entered around the 80 to 90 area because it did make a higher low. The previous low was 880, and then the new low was 882. It would have taken away the frustrations that I had on this down tick. I was I was being patient with my loser, but what I should have done was cut my losses quickly here, and then can always re-enter lower, right? If it actually made a higher low. So it's also another trade that I could have added size to, like especially like right here, because it was making a higher low. Could have added here around here somewhere. So in the $9 area. I eventually started selling at when it was like 932. It was making the spike to like the 40. And then I basically sold everything at like 28. So down here on this drop on the wick here, it eventually reached like 949, 948, 949. But I basically stopped trading the ticker anymore. And after uh, this trade and my trade on ISIG, I stopped trading for the day. My plan was for me to risk 20 cents and making for it to move back to like 65 to 70. That was the plan. And I decided to take quick profits here. So yeah. Um, my final trade of the day was WEI, WEI, at 2 o'clock, at 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock, right? Yeah, 1:30 to 2. When I was watching again, WEI was already moving up here. It was making a U shape. And I saw that the low was the 140, 240, and it bounces the 230, 240 area. So there's some area of supports in right there. My ideal entry was in the low 240 to mid 240. I entered with a starter. My my plan was to enter with 30 shares total. That was the max share size that I wanted to enter on this trade. So I start with 10 shares at 248.5, right? It did eventually went and tested VWAP and then dipped down. And on the dip, I re-entered again with 10 shares. And so my average was the same. And if it moved lower to like to my risk, I would get out. But what happened? It made a sideways action, right? I could add it like 52 to make it my total at 30 shares. But the average entry would not have been the mid or low 240s. And when it was trading sideways here, I decided to move my risk up to like 43. Why? Because I could have gone into a flush if it actually break down. What happened? It moved up higher. So it made a high, it made a basically a D pattern here on this move right here. My overall goal was to sell into this 270s to 290s. That was my overall goal. I decided to take my profits at 59, tiny bits. Decided to take my profits. And as you can see here, there was some profit taking around here because it did make a higher low. And it broke the 57 and moved to the 60. So I decided to take my profits at 57 right before VWAP break. And then when VWAP break, I decided to take my profits again at 62. So average sell here was 59. It moved lower. I held on to 10 shares. And it moved higher. It, it break VWAP again from the pullback. It moved higher. And so I decided to sell on this move right here. So I saw at the top here like 66. And it moved lower again. This time, my plan was if it could test VWAP and then bounce, I would sell if it could actually hit like the 270 area. But if not, and it went lower than 54, I would get out and count my losses. What happened? It did a very nice squeeze, 1 minute squeeze, all the way to 75, and that's when I took my all of my profits. I sold all of my position size at 275. It eventually went to the 80s and then attempt to test 90. But as you can see, it was heavy. The volumes was heavy in the 80. And it basically sold off to like from 2 o'clock all the way. So I would say that I took the meat of the move here. It was like a 5 to 6% gain. Nothing wrong with taking my profits. But again, could have been more convicted after after I sold off my share, half my position size here, right? Could have been more convicted and waited for a move up here. Waited for a move to my goal with a half my position size. So yeah. Selling, taking profits lead to more patience on the trade and just letting it work out. Could have like added back in on this quick move on the bounce of VWAP, since I'll be risking 54. But taking my profits, nothing wrong with it. Just need more convictions and learn to trade. Yeah, and that'll be all.